I mean, I fall into this all the time, and I think it probably happens for people who spend a lot of time on social media, which is comparing or saying I'm not enough, and then
Mm,
seeing these metrics, like these external figures that are saying you're not enough because you're like, well, I only got this many views and they got this many views, right? It's terrible for your self esteem. And then it gets really easy to try to tweak the version of yourself to get more engagement. And then you're kind of giving away pieces of yourself and your authenticity in doing so. So it's like, how do you take the feedback constructively without sacrificing your authenticity?
wow, that's a big question.
Mhm.
I mean, my where my mind goes when we having this conversation is, I believe we could have everyone has a to do list, right? And I think we should work like like really focused and relentlessly on building a not to do list.
Mhm.
Certain things that you don't want to put your energy towards.
Mhm.
It's easy to say, don't compare yourself to others. But part of how we identify ourselves is how we stand out, and how we fit in, right? And
Mhm.
interesting, as a child thinking about it, I haven't really thought about it, but I desire to fit in, but we also have this desire to also stand out. Um, when it comes to caring what other people think, I really do believe fundamentally, how we present ourselves, it takes a lot of energy, right? Like it's like all this energy we sometimes put into what the image we want to put out there, right? And then there's this more energy also put into the person that we're afraid people will, like we fear people are going to see. And then maybe there's another energy body like ourselves. So it's like our energy is split like three different places, and people wonder why they feel burnt out or they just feel exhausted, all the
Mhm.
time. And when it comes to fueling yourself, if we fuel our life with the opinions and expectations of those around us, both positive and negative, I'll say it on both sides,
Mhm.
then we're going to probably run out of gas, right? Because it's not very sustainable.
Mhm.
And it's nobody nobody has the right necessarily to define who we are, right? And I think that it's easy to say, but the only opinion about ourselves and our dreams, that counts is ourselves. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we let the noise of other people's opinions and expectations distort our own reality. It subverts our own thoughts. It drowns out our own true voice of who we are. And I'm not saying we don't learn from other people and get mentors, but no, owning that we are, you know, we and we alone are 100% responsible for our life.
Mhm.
And so it's not easy. Like there's a lot of things are very simple, but they're be also that difficult. And so comparison is a challenge because when we overthink or we have self judgment, I really feel like we talk about it in the book, like digital depression,
Mm.
where we're constantly comparing ourselves to the highlight trailer of, the people there. And sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because of the filter they're using, or there's a lot of artificial turf online also as well. But the
Mhm.
truth is, it's greener, where we water it and where we nurture it and what we nourish flourishes, right?
Mhm.
So, my thing is, because it's easy, with when, as you build following and everything, to really feel like that's life. For me, honestly, social media, it's not because I'm so enlightened. It stresses me out, honestly. So I
Mhm.
spend, very less and less time over the years on it. But I would say if you're going to use comparison, the person we should be comparing ourselves to is, uh, just ourselves, who we were yesterday,
Mhm.
or maybe comparing yourself to the best version of yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress, right? It's about the consistent
Mhm.
effort that you bring every single day
Mhm.
that lead to incremental changes in our life. Because I think little by little, a little becomes a lot, and that's how winning happens, right? That's how transformation happens. Just like there's an algorithm to Instagram, whatever you
Mhm.
engage with, they give you more of. You
Mhm.
watch all the cat videos, they show you more cats. You share cats, comment cats, and then you think their whole Instagram is just cats, right?
Mhm.
Well, your mind has that algorithm too. Whatever you engage with, you get more of. And so if people are just looking at what's dark and threatening and scary and fear-based media, if it bleeds, it leads, right?
Mhm.
Which is a big control mechanism, right? When somebody is fearful, in their survival brain mode, it really you're held hostage away from rational thinking. You're held
Oh, yeah.
hostage away from logic, right?
Mhm.
And that's a different conversation. But if I'm just focused on what like scary and threatening, I'm engaging with that, just like the cat videos. And so
Mhm.
I start seeing threatening, dark, scary things all over the place. The
Mhm.
challenge, though, it leaves very small bandwidth for gratitude, for possibility, for
Mm.
opportunity, right? And so I believe that the things that we look for, we see more of, and so the part of it I think is more neurological.
So do you have any hacks for when you find yourself in that high angst or, um, a state of frustration or anger to be able to kind of pull yourself out to soften it a bit so that you don't misstep or you don't,
Hmm.
you're not as easily influenced, all of those things?
Yeah, I feel you. I think all of learning and all of life is state dependent. Our
Mhm.
emotions, when think about it, we're not logical, we're biological. When you think about dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins, we are this like chemical feeling soup, and we don't do things logically as
Mhm.
much as we do it emotionally, right?
Mhm. Right.
And so if we're in a confused, fearful state, um, we're not gonna parent the best. We're not gonna study for that exam the best. We're not gonna give that wonderful toast at that wedding that we want to, or be able to perform on the field, right? And
Mhm.
so chronic stress, it actually shrinks the human brain. When we're creating cortisol and adrenaline all the time, it puts us in fight or flight or freeze. And
Mhm.
that's not a place you want to live and build, your dreams and create, your desired life. Chronic fear, by the way, suppresses the human immune system. The whole
Mhm.
area of psychoneuroimmunology, right? That it makes you more susceptible to colds, the flus, the viruses, and so
Yep.
like, so fear is certainly a virus, into itself, and it really compromises. And when we're in fight or flight or we're freezing, the challenge is we're not accessing the parts of ourselves, that executive functioning where we could that higher order rational thinking, that those creative centers of our mind. And so if you get flustered, right, from, oh my god, I'm so nervous, I have to give this presentation, or I'm scared of approaching that person I'm attracted to, or studying for this exam, the first thing to do is, obviously, you want to control how you feel. I think it's important. Everyone has their to-do list, but I think, what if we cultivated a to-feel list every single day? These are three emotions. Like, I want to build and develop. Because emotions are, everybody has a set point, right? Like,
Mhm.
they just have a set point for happiness or a set point for stress, and that's kind of like their norm. But I
Mhm.
also feel like it's a muscle too. That the more like, we look for stuff that's funny, or we watch funny things, we go to comic clubs, whatever, then we cultivate those things. Same thing with love, or
Mhm.
anything. So I think one of the questions you ask yourself before you need to perform is not, if anyone here is facing a dilemma or a decision or a difficulty, most people ask, what do I need to do? I would say, step back from that question. Instead of saying, what do I need to do now? Who do I need to be?
Mm.
Right? And come from, because if you're going to choose to be compassionate, in a difficult, like, argue, maybe you're entering an argument with your significant other or a child, then if you choose to be compassionate, then the behavior takes care of itself, right? If you choose to be loving or understanding, then the,
Mhm.
the behavior happens, the actions happen more naturally. I think the fastest way to change the way you feel is through our body. Sometimes it's hard just to, like, mentally just change things in your mind.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
think sometimes when we move our body in different ways, it puts us in a different place.
Mhm.
So, and that could be something as getting up and dancing, or listening to some music, putting a big silly smile on your face, something
Mhm.
that gets you out of that mode, because it just, and then also it generally changes the feeling pattern of the people around us also as well, because it's unexpected, right? It kind of
Mhm.
interrupts their normal train of feeling also. Um, so I would say, yes, of course, we have autonomy on how we feel. Nobody can, even though sometimes we feel like, oh, it, we react to the environment, to media, to politics, to the weather. Um, we decide, right? One of my favorite books is a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And I
Mhm.
think it's important that we could choose what experiences mean to us. And so what I would say is always start with our body. like moving our body, putting our shoulders back, our physiology affects our
Mhm.
psychology in a big way. Um, and the second thing is just to remind ourselves that, we are not our thoughts, right? And we don't have to believe everything that we think. And
Mhm.
it's easy to change our frame of mind by just saying, if you're in a hot debate with somebody, asking a different question, like, what's silly about this? Do I really want to be right, or do I want to be in love? Changing your focus onto something that's might be more empowering. Sometimes what we resist in life tends to persist, right? You
Mhm.
fight, and then that person, like, kind of digs their heels in, and then you're just like, then you just feel exhausted, and you can even just forget about what everything, why it even started from the beginning. But I would say we control the way we feel. And going back to choice and the power of choice, we could always decide what to think, what we act, and those actions lead to experience. That
Mhm.
experience lead to feelings, and those feelings feed those thoughts again. So it becomes very
Mhm.
cyclical. And we have a choice point at all times to decide what those things are.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're definitely stronger and have more control than we realize. But we always control the controllables, even with children. Like if it's a bad weather, outside, bad, and there's a judgment on it's raining and or
Uh-huh.
storming. Like even what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation, it's like if we act, oh, this sucks, it's just so bad outside, and we're teaching a child like your feelings and emotions are dependent on the weather. Even
Right.
something subtle like that, right?
Mhm.
And we just give up our agency or our sovereignty, to something outside of ourselves.